They told me I should rest. But how do you rest when your son starts wearing your watch before you're even discharged? My name is Helen Monroe, 70 years old, retired senior accountant from Grand Rapids, Michigan. I've balanced ledgers bigger than my town's annual budget, raised two children on my own, and built a portfolio my late husband used to call our quiet empire. Numbers are my language. Precision is my faith, and I can spot a lie faster than I can read a balance sheet. The day I woke up at St. Anne's Medical Center, I noticed it right away. Derek's wrist flashing gold as he leaned over my bed, fake smile glued to his face. "Don't worry, Mom," he said, brushing crumbs off my blanket. "Everything's handled. I signed the paperwork for you." I blinked. "What paperwork?" "Oh, just routine stuff, insurance, estate management. You know, boring legal things. You shouldn't stress about all that." He said it like he was doing me a favor, but I'd spent 40 years managing other people's money. I knew the smell of manipulation when I heard it. When I tried to sit up, he pressed a hand to my shoulder, gentle but firm. "Doctor said no strain, remember? Just focus on healing, I'll take care of everything." That phrase, "I'll take care of everything," had a way of chilling me more than the IV drip ever could. 2 days later, I asked the nurse for my mail. She frowned. "Your son already picked it up, Mrs. Monroe. He said he'd handle your bills until you're stronger." My bills? Derek never handled anything more complicated than an Uber receipt. When I was discharged the next week, I came home to a spotless kitchen, rearranged drawers, and a new home assistant system installed on the counter. Derek's voice echoed through the house when I spoke the wake word. "Welcome home, Mom. You're safe now." That night, when I checked my online banking app, it denied access. Password changed, and the next morning I got an email that froze my blood. "Your power of attorney file has been updated." The signature beneath it was mine, only it wasn't. Derek had taken my watch, my bank, and now my name. If he thought I'd lie back and let him, he'd forgotten who taught him to balance a checkbook. 3 days after coming home, I asked Derek a simple question. "Sweetheart, why did you change my online password?" He didn't even flinch. He poured himself coffee into one of my favorite mugs, the one I'd bought on our trip to Chicago when he got his first job, and said, "It's safer this way, Mom. You've been forgetting things lately." Forgetting things. That phrase cut deeper than the incision on my chest. I set my fork down. Forgetting things? Derek, I've balanced corporate ledgers with 8 zeros since before you could spell your name. He smirked. "And I love you for it, but you're not exactly 25 anymore. Doctor said you need rest. So I simplified things. Took your name off a few accounts, streamlined your finances. You'll thank me later." "Streamlined?" I repeated, my voice dangerously calm. He leaned forward, all fake warmth and control. "Mom, you've worked your whole life. You don't need to worry about property taxes or investments anymore. I've set everything up through my lawyer. Family first, remember?" Family first. The hypocrisy almost made me laugh. I looked around my kitchen, the one I designed tile by tile, now rearranged to his liking. The home assistant blinked silently in the corner, recording every word. "Where's the paperwork?" I asked. He smiled, too wide, too confident. "Already filed. Everything's legal and notarized. You should be proud. Your assets are protected." He patted my hand as if I were some fragile old woman, then added softly, "Try not to stress, okay? Stress isn't good for recovery." When he left for a meeting, I opened the kitchen drawer where I kept my checkbook. Empty. The folder of original deeds? Gone. Even my old calculator, the one I'd used for 30 years, was missing. That night, I poured a glass of wine, sat at my desk, and opened my late husband's ledger. The numbers calmed me, even as fury boiled beneath the surface. If Derek thought I was too weak to notice a forged signature, he'd just made the worst calculation of his life. Tomorrow, I decided I'd visit the bank myself, with or without his permission. And when I did, I'd see exactly what my loving son had done in my name. The next morning, I dressed like I used to when I ran numbers for the county. Navy blazer, pearl earrings, every hair in place. The teller at First Midwestern Bank recognized me instantly. "Mrs. Monroe, you haven't been in for a while. How are you feeling?" "Better," I said, sliding my ID across the counter. "I'd like to review my accounts and authorizations, please." Her fingers froze on the keyboard. "One moment, ma'am." She excused herself and returned with a branch manager. a nervous young man in a too-tight suit. "Mrs. Monroe," he said carefully, "your son, Mr. Derek Monroe, already updated the account. You're listed as a beneficiary only. He holds power of attorney. I'm afraid we can't make changes without his written consent." For a moment, the bank's soft music was the only sound. "Beneficiary," I repeated. "You're saying my son demoted me to beneficiary on my own accounts?" He cleared his throat. I'm sure there's been some miscommunication." I cut him off. "I was a senior accountant for 40 years, son. The only miscommunication here is your assumption that I wouldn't notice a forged signature." He blushed crimson. "If you'd like to file a complaint, I'd like a printout," I said. "Every transaction and authorization signed in the last 30 days." The printout came with trembling hands. I scanned each page: wire transfers, property filings, even a new checking account opened under Monroe Holdings Family Trust. The contact email wasn't mine, it was Derek's. That was when I saw it. Transfer, $482,000. Monroe Holdings. Signature, Helen J. Monroe. My hands didn't shake, my pulse didn't rise. I'd faced audits, federal deadlines, and corporate fraudsters, but nothing compared to seeing my child steal from me in legal ink. "Thank you," I told the manager. "You've been very helpful." Outside, the wind cut through my coat. I called Derek, voice cold as glass. "Sweetheart," I said, "I just left the bank. We need to talk." He hesitated. "Mom, please, you're misunderstanding everything." "I never misunderstand numbers, Derek, but I'll give you one chance to explain tonight. Bring the documents." He sighed. "Fine, but don't make a scene." I hung up, whispering to myself, "Oh, I plan to." Derek arrived just after sunset, driving the silver BMW I'd helped him finance 5 years ago when he said he was rebuilding his career. He didn't knock, just let himself in, like it was his house now. "Mom, before you get upset," he began, tossing his keys on my counter. "Let me explain." "I'm listening," I said, folding my arms. He paced the kitchen the way guilty people do when they're rehearsing a lie. "The power of attorney was temporary. You were in surgery, remember? I had to act fast. The lawyer said it was the only way to keep your account secure." "Secure from who?" I asked. "Myself?" "From mistakes." He hesitated, then added, "Mom, you've been stressed lately. After Dad died, after the surgery, look, I know you think you're fine, but the doctor said my heart is strong," I cut in. "And apparently so is my memory. Strong enough to remember I never signed a power of attorney." His jaw tightened. "You must have forgotten. It's right there in black and white." He reached into his briefcase and pulled out the documents, perfectly bound. My signature stared up at me, flawless, except for one tiny mistake. The J in my middle initial looped left. I always looped right. "You practiced," I said quietly. "You practiced until it looked real." "Mom, don't start." "How much, Derek?" I asked. "How much did you transfer before I even woke up from surgery?" He looked me dead in the eye. "500,000, but it's an investment, okay? I'm building something for both of us, for family." I laughed once, short, sharp, hollow. "You built it with fraud." He stepped closer, voice lowering. "Don't push me, Mom. I'm trying to help you. You don't understand how the system works anymore." I met his gaze. "I built the system." Silence, thick enough to taste. That's when the doorbell rang. Derek tensed. I opened it to see Nancy Pierce, my next-door neighbor and oldest friend, standing there with a grocery bag. "Evening, Helen. Brought you soup. Oh, am I interrupting?" Derek's eyes flicked nervously toward her. "Perfect timing," I said sweetly. "I was just hearing how my son made me legally dead on paper." Nancy froze, then set the bag down slowly. "What?" Derek grabbed his keys. "You're losing it, Mom." "Maybe," I said, smiling faintly, "but not my house." The next morning, the locks on my house didn't work. I stood on my own porch, groceries in one hand, key twisting uselessly in the door I'd opened for 40 years. Derek's car sat in the driveway, his reflection flashing in the window as he watched me from inside. He opened the door a crack, just enough to talk through it. "Mom, please, go stay with Nancy for a few days. The new lawyer said it's safer until the guardianship order clears." "Guardianship order?" My stomach dropped. "You filed me as incompetent." He sighed as if I were the child. You were confused, okay? Forgetting things, signing the same check twice. You need oversight. Derek, I made you. I know when you're lying. He looked down, then closed the door in my face. The click of the lock echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. Nancy found me sitting on the porch steps an hour later, soup still in the grocery bag beside me. Helen, what on earth happened? I told her everything about the forged documents, the frozen accounts, the $482,000, the guardianship order. She listened, eyes narrowing, then said, "That's elder abuse, plain and simple. You need help, legal help." I shook my head. No lawyer's going to take a half-dead 70-year-old woman's word over her son's. Nancy put her hand over mine. Then you need someone who knows the law and believes you. Remember your old student Sam Cooper? He's a county investigator now. For the first time that day, a spark of hope flared in my chest. Sam. Yes, I'd written his college recommendation letter. If anyone could smell a forged ledger from a mile away, it was him. That night, I slept on Nancy's couch. Or tried to. Every creak of her old farmhouse sounded like Derek's footsteps. Every car light outside looked like a sheriff's summons. At 3 a.m., I got up, wrapped myself in a blanket, and whispered to the dark, "You picked the wrong mother to underestimate." Tomorrow I'd find Sam, and I'd bring every printed transaction with me. If Derek wanted a war on paper, I'd give him an audit he'd never forget. Morning light spilled across Nancy's lace curtains, catching the dust like tiny floating witnesses. I sat at her kitchen table, staring at my old binder, the one Derek had missed when he cleaned out my files. Inside were handwritten ledgers, property statements, and a single yellow post-it with my late husband's handwriting. If anything happens, the safe code is your wedding date backward. My heart skipped. The safe, the one in the attic crawl space behind the cedar chest, the one Derek never knew existed. Nancy watched me from the stove. "You've got that accountant face again," she said. "The one you used when you caught the school board overcharging the cafeteria fund." I smiled grimly. "That's because I just remembered where the real records are." By noon we were in my attic, the air thick with dust and insulation. I reached behind the chest, fingers brushing cold metal. The lockpad blinked to life as I entered 072196. A click. Inside sat a folder marked Estate Originals, wills, deeds, notarized copies, my marriage certificate, untouched, authentic, and on top of everything else, my original power of attorney form, blank and unsigned. I felt my chest tighten, not from the surgery, but from something sharper, vindication. Nancy leaned over. "You've got him, Helen. You've got the proof." "No," I said slowly, gripping the papers. "I've got round one. Now I need someone who knows how to make it stick." We drove straight to the county building and found Sam Cooper in a gray jacket, older, broader, but still sharp-eyed. His face softened when he saw me. "Mrs. Monroe? You look like you're about to grade someone's soul." "Close," I said. "I'm here to audit my son." He skimmed the documents, eyebrows rising higher with every page. "Forgery, estate tampering, digital fraud. This is serious, Helen. We'll need to trace the transactions and get digital timestamps." "I want it done by the book," I said. "He thinks I'm too old to understand modern systems. Let's prove him wrong." Sam nodded. "Then we'll need to plan a trail. Make him show his hand." I smiled for the first time in weeks. For years, I taught kids that math never lies. Time to give Derek a pop quiz. Sam laid the documents across his desk like evidence in a criminal trial. "We can't just accuse him," he said. "We need a sequence, something provable, something he confirms himself." "I know," I said, "and I have an idea that'll make his arrogance do half the work for us." He leaned back. "Go on." "Derek's biggest flaw has always been pride," I said. "He wants to look successful, the golden son who rescued his poor, aging mother. If we make him think he's winning, he'll broadcast every crime himself." Nancy grinned. "Oh, this I've got to see." I opened my notebook and outlined the plan with the same precision I once used for million-dollar audits. Step 1. I'd request a formal family mediation through his lawyer, pretending I wanted to reconcile and thank him for handling my affairs. Step 2. During that meeting, I'd ask to review the updated will and compliment his professionalism, all while recording discreetly. Step 3. I'd bring a witness, Sam, posing as a neutral family friend. He'd verify the signatures afterward. Step 4. The bank logs and digital trail would link his transfers directly to his laptop IP address. Step 5. The finale, once the full report was ready, would take place in public. Derek was scheduled to appear on the local business show Midwest Mornings next month to promote his family finance workshops. Sam raised his eyebrows. "You're going to catch him live on air?" "I'm going to rewrite my will on air," I said, "and make him watch." Nancy's laugh was pure mischief. "Helen, you're dangerous when you've got a pen in your hand." Sam looked at me with quiet respect. "You really want to do this? It'll humiliate him." I met his gaze. Humiliation isn't the goal, accountability is. But if it burns, so be it. That night, I prepared every detail, backups, notarized originals, even an appointment with my new attorney. The date was circled in red on my calendar, April 14th, audit day. As I shut off the light, my phone buzzed with an email from Derek's lawyer. "Looking forward to finalizing your estate transition this Friday." Perfect. The trap was already setting itself. Friday arrived dressed in spring sunshine, too cheerful for what was coming. Nancy drove me downtown, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "You sure about this?" she asked. "I've never been sure," I said, adjusting my blazer. Today, I stopped being the victim on paper. Derek's lawyer's office was glass, chrome, and smugness. The receptionist greeted me with a pitying smile. "Mrs. Monroe, Mr. Monroe and Mr. Harper are expecting you." Inside, Derek stood beside his attorney, looking every inch the successful son. Expensive suit, practiced charm, the faintest cologne of deceit. "Mom," he said, pulling out a chair, "glad you're finally seeing reason." "Oh, I am," I replied, taking my seat. Sam entered a moment later, introducing himself as Samuel Pierce, family consultant. The meeting began with rehearsed politeness. Harper slid a stack of documents toward me. "This is the current version of your estate management and will. We've consolidated your assets for simplicity." "Wonderful," I said sweetly. "Would you mind if I read through before signing?" "Of course," Derek said, leaning back smug. As I flipped through the pages, my pulse stayed steady, because what they didn't know was that every sound in that room was being recorded. The pen clipped to my lapel wasn't decoration. It was a miniature audio recorder Sam had wired for evidence. When I reached the clause that named Derek as sole trustee, I looked up. "Tell me, Derek," I asked casually, "what made you decide your sister didn't deserve a share?" He chuckled. "Mom, she's in debt. You know how irresponsible she is. I'm just protecting the family legacy." "By stealing it?" I said quietly. He blinked. "Excuse me?" Sam interjected calmly. "She means managing it, of course." I smiled tightly. "Yes, managing." Then I signed the acknowledgement page. With my left hand, intentionally messy, Derek's eyes lit up, believing he'd won. As soon as I left, Sam took the recording straight to the County Financial Crimes Division. That audio, coupled with the time-stamped bank printouts, became physical proof #1, undeniable evidence of coercion and fraudulent intent. By the time Derek texted me that evening, "So proud of you, Mom. You did the right thing." The file had already been uploaded to the case log under Monroe Investigation, Preliminary Evidence. I poured myself a glass of wine, looked at the calendar, and whispered, "Enjoy your weekend, son. Next time we meet, there'll be cameras." The day of Derek's live interview arrived like Judgment Day. Bright lights, polished floors, and a stage built for lies. Midwest Mornings aired from a glass studio downtown. The segment promo online read, "Local entrepreneur Derek Monroe, How Family Trusts Can Protect Your Legacy." I'd never tasted irony so bitter. I arrived early, carrying a plain leather folder and wearing my late husband's silver brooch, my version of armor. Sam waited near the security desk with a quiet nod. "Everything's set. Producers think you're a surprise guest brought by the station." "Perfect," I said. "Let's give them a real surprise." Through the glass wall, I watched Derek charm the host, his voice confident, rehearsed. When aging parents start to lose track of finances, he said, it's our duty as children to step in. My own mother trusts me completely. That was my cue. The producer waved me forward. The host's eyes widened when she saw me, but she kept smiling. And we actually have Derek's mother, Mrs. Helen Monroe, joining us today. What a lovely surprise. Derek's face drained of color. Mom? I stepped into the light, calm as the eye of a storm. Good morning, sweetheart. I thought I'd help clarify a few things for transparency's sake. The audience laughed, thinking it was part of the show. I placed my folder on the table, flipped it open, and held up the printout Sam had notarized, the original power of attorney form, blank. This, I said, voice steady, is what I actually signed. Nothing. No authority granted, no consent, no transfer. The camera zoomed in. The studio went dead silent. Derek forced a grin. Mom, that's not, this isn't the time. Oh, I think it is, I said, pulling the second page. Because this, I continued, is a wire record showing $482,000 moved into Monroe Holdings, your company, the same week I was in surgery. The host blinked, caught between curiosity and panic. Mr. Monroe, do you have a response? Derek stammered. She must be mistaken. She's been ill. Really? I said, cutting him off. Then maybe the viewers can decide. I turned to the audience camera, holding the papers high. My name is Helen Monroe, retired accountant. I raised my son to respect numbers, but he forgot that numbers always tell the truth. Gasps rippled through the studio. The director tried to cut to commercial, but Sam had already arranged for a live stream backup. Everything went out, uncensored, uncut, unstoppable. Derek's microphone slipped from his collar. Mom, he hissed, you'll regret this. I smiled faintly. You still don't understand, Derek. I am your regret. The broadcast exploded across every platform before the station even cut to commercial. By noon, hashtags with our names were trending. #Monroe Family Truth, #Willgate, #Justice for Helen. Derek's PR team tried to spin it as a misunderstanding between a devoted son and his elderly mother. But within hours, clips of his stammering went viral. My inbox flooded with messages from strangers, children, caretakers, retired teachers, everyone saying thank you for standing up. That night, Derek's rage finally arrived, not in person, but in voicemail form. Mom, his voice snapped through the phone, you've humiliated me publicly. You've ruined my career. Take that video down before my lawyers do. I replayed it once, twice, then saved it as proof #2. Nancy called minutes later. He's on damage control, deleted half his business accounts, but guess who just leaked the hospital authorization log? The clinic administrator. The one who witnessed my signature? Exactly. Turns out your son modified your chart from her login. IT caught it. She's ready to testify. Sam texted right after. County Fraud Division accepted our case. They want a statement and copies of all digital evidence. It was happening faster than I expected. His empire, once untouchable, starting to crumble piece by piece. By Monday morning, Midwest Mornings invited me back. Not for an ambush this time, but for a full interview. I declined. I've said what I needed to say. Now the numbers will talk. At dusk, a black SUV stopped in front of my house. Derek got out, still in a suit, but with none of his former confidence. He didn't even knock, just walked in, jaw tight. Congratulations, Mom, he said coldly. You've destroyed your own son. I set down my tea. No, Derek, you did that when you forged my name. You think people are going to believe some dusty accountant over me? They already do, I said softly. And tomorrow the court will too. He took a step closer. You've gone too far. So have you, I replied. You walked right into a live broadcast thinking you owned me. But I still own my name, my will, and my truth. His eyes flicked to the folder on my counter, and he lunged for it, too late. Sam stepped out from the hallway, recording on his phone. Evening, Derek, he said evenly. You might want to leave before you add breaking and entering to your list. Derek froze, realizing the camera light was on. Then he turned, muttering, You'll regret this. I looked straight into the lens and said quietly, Regret is for those who stayed silent. The next morning felt oddly calm, like the air right before a thunderstorm hits. Sam called at 7:15 a.m. sharp. "Helen, you might want to sit down." "I'm already sitting," I said, pen in hand. "What now?" He exhaled slowly. "The county clerk's office just sent me an authenticated copy of your will, the one Derek filed last month. You're going to want to see this." An hour later, he arrived with a manila envelope and laid it on my kitchen table like a verdict. Inside was a scanned affidavit, notarized and time-stamped, with one crucial difference. The signature next to my printed name had 2 loops instead of 1. Derek had forged my hand badly, but that wasn't the real bombshell. Taped to the back of the affidavit was a security photo from the courthouse, time-stamped 3:47 p.m., showing Derek himself handing the envelope to a clerk. "That," Sam said, pointing, "is physical proof #2. Nancy, who had just come in with a tray of muffins, stared at the photo. "That's the same tie he wore on TV. What an idiot." I smiled faintly. He's consistent, always dressing for his own downfall. By noon, Sam had filed the complete report, forged estate documents, audio from the mediation, and now the photo from the clerk's office. The investigator promised a formal charge within 48 hours. At 3 p.m., Derek called again, but this time his tone was different. No threats, just silence followed by, "I didn't think you'd actually fight back." "I know," I said quietly. "You counted on me being the quiet mother who forgives everything. I thought I was helping you." "Helping yourself," I corrected. "Don't confuse them." There was a long pause, then a broken voice. "They're freezing my accounts. Everything I built, it's gone." "You built it on my signature," I said. "You shouldn't be surprised it's crumbling under my name." He hung up without another word. I looked at Sam. "Tomorrow we finish this." He nodded. "Court at 9. Bring the original ledger and your hospital discharge papers." That night, I walked through my quiet house, touching the frames on the wall, the family photos that now look like a cautionary tale. Then I stopped at my late husband's old desk, where his favorite saying was carved into the wood. "Truth may move slow, but it never loses direction." I whispered, "Tomorrow, where it arrives." At exactly 8:57 a.m. the next morning, as I stepped into the courthouse, I saw Derek already waiting, his suit wrinkled, his tie undone, his eyes hollow. He looked up and muttered, "Mom, what are you about to do?" I met his gaze. "Something you never expected, son. Tell the truth." The courtroom was colder than I remembered. Oak benches, buzzing lights, and the faint hum of tension that fills the air when the truth is about to land. Derek sat across the aisle, head down, his lawyer whispering fast and low. Sam stood beside me, steady as ever, binder of evidence in his hands. When the judge entered, every sound seemed to vanish. "Case 48C, Monroe versus Monroe," the clerk announced. "Allegation: forged estate documents and unauthorized financial transfer." The judge, an older woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper sense of justice, looked between us. "Mrs. Monroe, you're the petitioner. Begin." I rose, my knees didn't shake, my voice didn't waver. "Your Honor," I said, placing the leather folder on the desk, "this is my original power of attorney, blank. This is my bank statement showing $482,000 withdrawn under my forged signature. And this—" I paused, sliding the courthouse photo forward. "Is my son submitting that document to your clerk?" A murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Monroe, do you deny this?" Derek stood, his voice cracked on the first word. "I was trying to protect my mother's finances. She was recovering, I thought—" The judge cut him off. "You thought you could alter a legal document? You forged your mother's name on a will. That's not protection, Mr. Monroe. That's theft." Sam added quietly, "And fraud, Your Honor. We've submitted timestamps, wire logs, and video proof of his admission." The judge looked at me again. "Mrs. Monroe, what are you seeking today?" I took a slow breath. "Not revenge, just restoration. I ask that my assets be returned, my will reinstated, and that my son learns the cost of breaking the one trust that mattered most." Her gavel came down hard. Petition granted, all transfers reversed. Monroe Holdings placed under audit. Mr. Derek Monroe, you are hereby charged with felony, forgery, and fraud. Gasps, cameras clicked. Derek's lawyer dropped his pen. My son turned to me then, pale, trembling, smaller than I'd ever seen him. Mom, please. I met his eyes, not angry, not triumphant, just done. I warned you not to treat family like property. Two deputies approached. Derek's cuffed hands shook as they led him away. The sound of those metal clicks echoed longer than any word he'd ever said to me. As the room emptied, Sam touched my shoulder. You did it. No, I said softly, watching the door swing shut behind my son. I just stopped pretending I couldn't. It's been 3 months since that day. I sold Monroe Holdings, legally this time, and donated part of the money to a scholarship for single mothers studying finance. The rest, I used to build something Derek could never forge: peace. If you've listened this far, thank you. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done in my place? And don't forget to subscribe to Revenge Stories U60 USA, because stories like mine deserve to be heard.